Just want you guys to know, I've been stuck listening to Christmas music since October, and the local Sam's Clubs put their Christmas ornaments out in August. Just want to throw that in there, so that you guys know a little bit more about the shit that causes this, why it's like this. Torture is why. Have we already covered 2010? I'm pretty sure we did, but just in case, let's do a quick recap. There was Mass Effect 2, Bioshock 2, StarCraft 2, Bad Company 2, Just Cause 2, Mario Galaxy 2, Dead Rising 2, Mafia 2, Iron Man 2, ew, Force Unleashed 2, Ass Creed 2 Part 2, and God of War, plot twist, 3. Pretty crazy year when you think about it. Special mentions going out to Super Meat Boy and the absolutely god-awful Fable 3. But, of course, Vigil by way of THQ gave us Darksiders. And I gave that shit an immediate pass. Main character was overly designed in that pseudo-post but actually directly ripping off World of Warcraft style, and the gameplay showcased gave us a glimpse of early God of War syndrome, and I'm pretty sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. OG of War's combat was simple as shit, but it at least had one or two combos. And here comes the very embodiment of War, and he can't even copy one of those combos. To top it off, the scenery was drab browns and grays, and of course by today's standards and with the beauty of hindsight, that assessment seems a little unfair. But in 2010, the time where guys like me were ready to convert to communism rather than play another brown grit fest, especially one that couldn't even reach Warrior Within's combat depth, yeah, it got a hard pass. And now, Vigil doesn't even exist anymore. And really, neither does THQ. They both kind of semi-sort of live on as THQ Nordic, so they're not entirely gone. But I think it's more of a Rare and BioWare situation where they're more just names. Empty husks. The talent you love long since gone. I played some of Darksiders 2 and never really got very far in it and just kind of let that shit sit dormant. And now, there's a third, a spin-off, and 2 remasters out, so why the fuck not jump on the apocalyptic train? In 2016, Darksiders Warmastered was released, and having been Warmastered by Kaiko, no idea who that is. So, a bajillion years too late, we're taking a look at it. We're taking a look at it. Roll the fucking Armagerd! The seventh seal is broken and the trumpets blow, signaling the apocalypse. War crashes onto the earth amidst the already warring factions, and all JK, it was just a prank, bro. The seals weren't actually broken, the call never went out. And if it did, where the fuck yo niggas at? Too late to answer, cause now you dead. Alive. Contract killer for the primordial all-being council. Kill out the vengeance and murder the bastards, lest ye be murdered. And oh, Mark Hamill was there too. Yes, it turns out the seals weren't broken and the call never went out, yet somehow War heard it because, you know, tinnitus, I guess. The Charred Council, knowing a plot is afoot but having no evidence, decides they really could use a patsy, and since War is literally in his name, maybe they'll just go ahead and pin Operation Desert Storm 4 on him and use that guilt to slap him with cleanup duty. What follows is a bland as fuck tale of ceaselessly angry guy, mortal super being of War, seeking out the leaders of both heaven and hell on the now destroyed Earth and putting them back in their holes. But there's betrayal on the route, and none of it is very consequential, and what the fuck was that editing? No. Roll the tape back. What the fuck was that? They do it one more time later in the game, and it's just... what the fuck was that? Speaking of what the fucks, enjoy this footage entirely unedited.
Could be you really are who you say. Them pigeons seem mighty convinced, but I ain't. So once again, you know me, but I still don't know you.
Yeah, that's really the first major issue you notice about the game. After that pre-rendered cutscene at the start, everything after is in-engine, and it's kind of completely fucked when you think about it. The audio is entirely out of whack. Dialogue plays at normal level, but no matter my settings, music and sound effects played super low, mostly entirely inaudible, and it creates this very weird effect. Just listen again.
No doubt you'll face him again. He draws power from the spire and won't stand to be away from it for long. With all I have taught you, you might even survive the reunion.
I don't even know how to begin to describe it. Like, it isolates voice tracks and they stick out and it's just grimace-inducing. But hey, they've got Liam O'Brien voicing War, and you may remember him from such titles as every video game you've ever fucking played as long as it was in English, especially anime titles. Speaking of voices and done-to-death motifs, Mark Hamill is here voicing the Watcher. Sort of like your handler, he enforces the Council's will while you're out doing the thing, but spoiler warning, betrayal is afoot, because you're just a fall guy, a useful goon type, and they gonna axe you when it's all done. War learns the truth, real Armageddon is kicked off, and sequel bait is teased. Want a quick rundown of the convoluted plot? Just strap in, because here we go. Abaddon decides he's tired of sitting around while Hell just flaunts the fact that it exists. He decides he's going to kick off a fake Armageddon and catch Hell unawares, because why the fuck not? He gets ancient bugbear Ulthane and his personal knob gobbler Uriel Septim in on it, and the plan is hatched. Break 6 of the seals, set out fake call, catch Hell sitting on the toilet, win easy peasy. And just like 2005, mission accomplished might have been declared a little early. You see, the CIA lied and Hell didn't actually have nuclear arms, and oh yeah, they were ready and waiting. Somehow Hell knew what was up and met them on equal footing. Straga kills Abaddon. War takes the fall, Uriel has no idea what's going on, Abaddon swears his service to Hell and becomes the Jack of Blades dragon from the end of Lost Chapters. Meanwhile, down at the Hall of Records, Charred Council got played for a bunch of limp-wristed fagaloons and need a cleanup crew and a scapegoat. So they resurrect / free from prison War after 100 years, lash him to the slave stick, and send him out to do the mopping. Still with me? Okay, let's keep rolling the tape. Uriel mad, Ulthane in self-imposed exile, Abaddon still presumed dead, attack dog, handler, the destroyer supposedly sits in a tower and War needs to kill it. Free Samael. Samael was a Mati stan and demands hearts. You get him hearts, lol, psych, it was all a trick. Didn't really need those hearts to get to the tower, just you made a bad deal because you weren't on knowledgeable footing. Whatever, get the tower. Oh looky, here's Azrael. Power tower, free him, kill Straga, learn that it's all a cosmic setup and the handler is going to kill you. Learn truth about all the shit that went down. Get Isildur's blade. Kill Jack of Abaddons. Kill Watcher. Break 7th seal. End. It's messy, to say the least. For a plot about intrigue and whatnot, it's simple and presented in a manner that's digestible, but it's a little... how do I put it? Played out. Cosmic betrayal and scapegoating? Yeah. We've kind of been there. Done that. So it's not a great story, and thanks to the batshit retarded sound mixing for cutscenes, it's not told all that well. So how does it play? It's stiff, clunky, shows its age of the ideas that went into its development, and it showed those ages even when it was released. When I say it's clunky, I mean it's lumbering to the point that the only way it could have been worse is if the game started with 2 and ended with human. War isn't exactly a nimble boy, and he was never one for running a 5K, so he just kind of leisurely jogs around like he just doesn't really have anywhere to be right now. He jumps, and he can double jump, but there are more concessions made to make the game feel more like a video game, and of course to serve some minor jumping puzzles. At least, that's what I got out of it. Combat is simplistic as absolute shit. 4 or 5 button press combos pretty much relegated to single button use. X 5 times for one weapon, Y 5 times for secondary weapon. A nice array of useless right trigger weapons with only 2 of which you'll ever want to use. Sometimes you can mix X and Y, but it's never what you would call a true combo, and when it works in your favor, it appears to be more accident than intentional design. You get War's sword, and it's your bread and butter for most of the game. For secondary weapons you get a scythe, and also Death's scythe, because... who the fuck knows why? You also get the heavy attack gauntlets from every one of these goddamn games you've ever played. They're meh. It doesn't have any real application in the launch category, and is mostly just an excuse to not have an item that you only use when the game specifically asks you to. Each of these levels as you use them, and they have an augmentation slot for adding extra effects, usually ranging from extra damage and extra experience. And that's really the only augmentations I found useful. As stated, combos are simple and there's no real tricks. I mean, OG Devil May Cry had more depth to its combat. It's flashy, that's for sure, but it's surely no more flashy than any game that came out a minimum of 5 years previous. It suffers from many of the problems that Alice Madness Returns' as combat would suffer from a year later, i.e. it's boring, uninspired, mediocre, barely beginning to describe. Oh yeah, those right trigger weapons exist. You get the glaive from Krull. This is one of the 2 right trigger weapons you'll use, mostly due to it actually being useful in combat and its utility in puzzles. Second, you get a gun. A gun. You get a fucking gun. And unsurprisingly, it's worthless. That is, when it shows up and decides to work at all. Lovely. Then comes the hook shot. This is the second right trigger weapon that you'll be standing, as it's actually useful outside of its main purpose. It's great, and I'll try to explain more later. And the final right trigger weapon you get is a mask that lets you see into the Shadow Realm. Yep, so fucking useful that it just demands its own weapon slot. And oh hey, as I'm typing this out, I'm remembering that there was actually a fucking Vuvuzela you get early in the game, use a grand total of twice, and has absolutely no desirable utility in combat, and thus you find yourself throwing it away just as quickly as the devs did. Wonderful, right? The glaive can be charged to stun. It can also lock onto enemies. It's a pretty good lockdown weapon for some of the weaker enemies. Pistol will stun lock those same enemies, but doesn't really do an amount of damage that even a Quark would call substantial. Hookshot drags you to larger enemies or pulls smaller enemies towards you, which is a fucking blessing 9 hours in, once you're tired of the swarms of enemies running away from you and off screen. The mask is a mask. Jesus fucking Christ, why did the mask need a weapon slot? And the horn, which will knock enemies down, is used as a needless plot device early in the game and only exists to fill up a button slot early on, because just like the Thief 4 design documentation would reveal years later, every button must have big, obvious, flashy result because we're all just children and we need to bang, bang, flashy, flashy regardless of what the actual game's rating is. Are you picking up that I was more annoyed by this game than anything else? Enemy designs are cute, if not a little repetitive. Supposed demons look more like orcs and skeletons ripped from World of Warcraft. Hulking monsters come in a handful of types with slight variations for more damage to be done to you. Floaty enemies who deal multiple hits of massive damage that you get locked into taking if you don't parry or block, and love attacking from off screen, etc., etc. Combat has some massive unpolished issues. You see, it wants to be a character action game, but it also wants to be a Legend of Zelda game. So Bodybuilder Link is slow and lumbery, enemy attacks come fast and furious. It's K, Demon Souls worked out after all. But then the game takes it a step further and does things only Ninja Gaiden was able to get away with, and just barely. Scene. Exterior. The world is crumbling. Humanity has been absent for a century. The biblical embodiment of the apocalypse enters the desolate arena and is met with the absolute last dregs of what the devs could pull from a barrel labeled Shemha 4-Ash. War draws his sword and charges the group. 5 of the 6 run away and put as much distance between you and them as possible while you're just trying to hit number 6. As you combo and turn to pull a second monster into combat, the remaining 4 slip off screen, and then immediately pop back on, mid-attack, giving you 3 frames to block or parry before you take damage and lose your momentum. 4 times in a row, and thanks to hit stun mixed with recovery delay, it feels like an eternity between each attack, but the game doesn't let you block. They deal very little damage, but it happens a lot, and it's the cheese grater on your temple effect that it has on your experience that just... Bigger monsters fight like bigger monsters. They're slow, a bit more telegraphed with some bullshit attacks and combos, but otherwise, very manageable. It's the floaty sluts that are the problem. They have the issue that those other guys have. Fly off screen, come back on with quick attacks you can't block. Only, they get worse. Those attacks become combos, and that combo will go for 5 to 6 hits, and you don't get to recover and do a block half the way through the combo. And now the combo is dealing 4 health bars of damage. Because you gain multiple health bars. And they only exist as an excuse to crank up the damage up to retarded levels to the point where the enemy combos you for 4 of them from off screen. Bosses just outright suck. They're simplistic, repetitive Legend of Zelda ripoff crap, uninspired, dull, forgettable, and overall the game plays out repetitively as well. Go to area, set piece moment, do the thing you were supposed to do. Let me lay it out for you like I did the plot. Opening cutscene, giant power trip, plot device, go to spot, silly set piece that has nothing to do with the rest of the game and will only ever be used this once, part 1, Panzer Dragoon. Dungeon, go to second place, silly set piece 2, bro combat escort. Dungeon, go to third place, silly set piece 3, slow lumbering around with cannon. Coliseum set piece, horse get, boss fight, go to place you've already been, no set piece. Dungeon, go to place, dungeon. Same trash boss fight 3 fucking times. Boss fight, needless scavenger hunt, final boss fight part 1, final boss fight part 2 that is nothing but a forced parry fest, despite never really requiring you to use or learn the parry except for one short challenge 12 hours previous. It's procedural as fuck. It's generic as fuck. It's repetitive as fuck. It's an interesting concept and a hell of a lot of work went into it, a hell of a lot of good work at that. Despite its drabness, the settings are varied and unique. Enemies stand out, and even the ones that are just recolors, they look good. The soundtrack, when you can even hear it, is fine enough by my recollection, and graphically, it's held up pretty damn good. But everything else is just absolutely uninspired cookie-cutter gameplay that should have been considered stale, lacking, and in dire need of some new ideas even at the time. It's so painfully clunky that after jumping, War has this weird stutter where the game can't tell if he should be stopped or keep running, and it just makes movement weird. The game loves dropping jump inputs near ledges to the point that I have pressed jump 3 times before happily walking off a cliff. Multiple goddamn times! I checked my controller, tested it across multiple games and with other programs, it's fine. Even in the game I can do stupid jump loops to make it sure it works just fine. It's just for some reason the game starts to freak out the closer you get to a ledge. Dodging and blocking are set to the same button, and the context is based off of whether or not you're moving. Not whether you are holding a direction or not, whether or not the game believes you are moving. It's unreliable and janky. Example, you can be moving mid-combo when you swing your sword and holding a direction to boot, but the game will register you as standing still and you eat an unblockable attack that you tried to dodge through, even though you're moving and thus were attempting to pull off the dodge. I don't even know where to go from here anymore. I mean, it's okay. It's only an 11 to 13 hour game, and the great thing about its simplicity is it never gets so complicated that the clunky controls drag down the experience. It's never frustrating even when the game just so happens to decide your dumbass is walking right off a goddamn cliff. It's so fucking easy, in fact, that I had no trouble with the puzzles. Despite enemies being able to drain 4 health bars from me, I didn't actually need health items until the final battle. Checkpoints are generous, so if you die, you'll usually be placed right back where you were, just now with 3 extra health bars to boot. The platforming sucks a rancid monkey's ass, but it's all really straightforward and requires no actual skill. It's a weird mishmash. It's like the devs knew how chunky it handled, and thus lowered its complexity to help it not overstay its welcome. It's like they knew the gameplay was boring, so they varied what you're doing as much as possible, down to the point of some gimmicks only sticking around for like 30 fucking minutes, but always trying to stay fresh. It's like they knew the product was a mediocre mess, so they did everything they could to alleviate that fact and the player's boredom. I mean, it's not great. It's okay. It's on sale on Steam so often that I've only ever seen it at the $20 mark like once. I got it for $5, and for $5, it's kind of not that bad of a proposition. The voice acting, which has a weird effect thanks to audio engineering and cutscenes, isn't bad either. Yeah, Mark Hamill's Joker voice is a little stale, but that's really not his fault, and he's not all that prominent. The gameplay is a clunky bucket of fuck, but it's super simple and streamlined, and again, it's actually got great variety in locations and great graphical fidelity. Darksiders 1 is a weird proposition. Overall, it nets a shrug from me. If it's on sale, yeah, it will help you kill a couple afternoons. It's not going to be all that memorable, but it's not going to be offensively bad either. I'm the TheNecroswanson, and you can go fuck yourselves.
Pray into the God, confession and deliverance. Pray into the